Welcome back to Between the Levees. We're joined today by Mr. Jonathan Poulsen. He is a training specialist for Campbell Transportation. He's been in the industry about 8 years. Mr. Poulsen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Well, first things first, you were telling me before this call that you like to put my podcast on while you're sitting at your desk. Please fill me in on what you think of the show and how you found it.
Honestly, I found it through Facebook on one of those towboat groups that everybody knows, and I thought that was pretty neat because I haven't seen anything like that about our industry. I mean, um, before I got into it, I'd never even heard of towboating, so it's definitely one of those unheard of gems, I think. And I saw what you're doing, I was like, that's pretty neat. Everybody in the industry knows like the hooked up hard down, and we saw all that and that was pretty cool. And so I started giving it a listen, and I actually I'm a little behind. I just finished up your episode with Miss Stephanie from Kirby. That was the last episode I listened to, but yeah, when I'm sitting at my desk, I like to plug it in, or my commute to and from the office. Sitting through traffic definitely helps make that more bearable. So
Well, I think Stephanie was episode 16 or so. I'm not sure. It was pretty early on, but I just published episode 100, so you do have some catching up to do.
oh, definitely.
Well,
Yep.
whatever the case, you said you'd not heard of the industry before. How did you find yourself in the industry, and have you been with Campbell the whole time?
All but 1 year. So, actually, my dad worked for he was in the Coast Guard. He was a Marine Safety Inspector before Sub M came into effect. And when I was 19 years old, I was selling cars at a dealership in the Pittsburgh area, and just wasn't for me. Sitting at a desk all day, I just wasn't happy. And talking to him one night, and he said, "Well, why don't you try towboat?" And I said, "Well, what's towboat?" Yeah, I knew what big ocean ships were and stuff like that, but I never knew what a towboat was. And the way he broke it down to me, he goes, "Oh, all you do is you ride, eat food, get fat, and make a good bit of money." I said, "Well, that sounds easy enough." Turned out that was a lie, but 8 years later, I'll come this April, and I'm still in it. Couldn't imagine doing anything else, so I'm happy with my decision.
Tell me about your start in the industry.
So I started with a mom and pop passenger vessel company here in the Pittsburgh area. When I first started to get out, I applied to everybody. At the time, Ingram was still running pretty good up in the Pittsburgh pools. ACBL, Arco, Hines, Campbell initially, Murray American when they were around. Basically, anybody that ran in the Pittsburgh area, I sent an application out to, and pretty much got told, hey, we're looking for somebody with experience. And I was like, well, damn, kind of hard to get experience. But so again, talking to my dad about it, I said, I put in all these applications, not really sure what to do now. And he told me about this little passenger vessel company that operates in the Pittsburgh area. And he said, hey, it's better than nothing. So I went, I applied, got offered the job, and I spent exactly 365 days with that company. They were a great company, definitely very family oriented, and met a lot of good people, made a lot of good friends there. But on my 1 year anniversary with them, I started with Campbell, my current employer. So
Tell me about the job on a passenger vessel.
So I hired in as quote unquote deckhand. It's not like the deckhands we see in our industry by any means. Yeah, you do tie lines and secure the vessel. Uh, Basically, you're just making sure everybody's safe. Not getting hurt. Helping out other staff on the vessel. Do help with navigation sometimes and stuff like that. In Pittsburgh area, summertime definitely gets pretty crowded with passenger vessel or private vessels and stuff like that. So. Um, yeah, my term was a deckhand, but I definitely it's a lot different than when I come to inland side. So
Well, tell me about your start with Campbell and your introduction to the barge industry and decking and how different it was, obviously, than what you knew.
yeah, so I was like I said, I had applied to Campbell once before, and I actually still keep my letter of them, saying, hey, we want more qualified candidates as kind of like a little reminder, from where I've come. And I started out with them on the line haul side, running from basically Powhatan Point down to Cogger Creek Power Plant on the motor vessel when you see. And I'll be honest, I hated it at first. It was definitely a big shock, not what I thought it was going to be. And it was rough. I was not a big fan, but I told myself I'm going to give myself 90 days on boat, not just 90 days with the company. After 90 days, if I still hate it, I can say I gave it my honest, shot, and it's just not for me. And this job definitely isn't for everybody, and there's no shame in that. But I didn't want to quit. I was hoping I'd have that light bulb moment, and that's exactly what happened. About my third trip out there, it all kind of just clicked, and I said, "Wow, this job really isn't that bad." I mean, it's any job. You're gonna have your hard days. You're gonna have the days where it sucks, but I mean, I can't see myself doing anything else. And luckily, I had that moment where it clicked for me, and I fell in love with it. So I rode the Winnie Sea for about 8 months, and then I got the opportunity to transfer to a day boat running on the Mon River at mile marker 18 in Clarendon, Pennsylvania. And I got to work with a phenomenal crew there. I was truly blessed. Going from the line haul side to the day boat side, I definitely thought I knew what I was doing as a deckhand. And then my harbor hands definitely showed me I didn't know anything. And I worked my tail off. We were a 5-2 boat Monday through Friday, but more often than not, we were working our weekends. And the captain I was with, Richard Maloney, long time riverman. I mean, he's been out here forever. Made me into a decent little deckhand, and helped me move up, my career path and helped me to get to where I'm at now. So definitely shout out to him and all the knowledge he passed down to me.
Do you remember the moment it clicked for you and you said, okay, this is the career for me?
Yes, we were actually tying off. We had just tied off our 15 loads at Cogger Creek, and we were going to start building our 15 empties. And I remember I had, for some reason, I could never get my scissor wires. They would just like when it was time for me to lay a scissor wire, I was deer in headlight, just didn't know what was going on. And my lead man at the time, said, "Hey, go ahead, start working on that coupling. I'm going to work on this coupling up here, and I remember telling him like, "Oh, you got it." And I was like, God damn, I hope I get it. I don't mess this up. I was tired of getting, not yelled at, but you know, I could definitely tell they were getting frustrated with me. And it just kind of all clicked, and he'd come up to check in on see how I was doing, and I'd gotten it right. And I was like, about time. And once I had that, I mean, it was just smooth sailing. I mean, this job, I love it. And I can't imagine doing anything else outside of this industry. And I never thought I'd go shoreside at all. I figured I was going to ride out my whole career on the boats, and I was perfectly fine with that. And then I got the opportunity to come shoreside, and I said, you know what, let's give that a shot, see what that's about. And about 2 years later, or this April will be 2 years shoreside, and I think I'm doing okay.
I know you're staying busy, but walk me through your introduction to Campbell, your decking, and then all the way up to licensed tankerman.
Yeah, so what was it, 2018, 2019, somewhere around that time frame, right before pretty much everything started getting locked down with COVID. Uh, we had hired in a bunch of people from another company, into our executive team and stuff like that. And one of the guys come out, Captain Joe Graham, to our boats. He was the manager of vessel operations at the time, I believe. And he came out, to our day boat and was introducing himself to us and talking. I figured with him coming from a certain company that was definitely not into dry cargo, there had to be a reason. So I asked him, I said, hey, are we going to start branching out into the chem barges more? Because previous to that, we would tow them, but we had shore tankermen at our one facility up here in the Ohio River, but that was about it. And he said, yeah, no, we're definitely looking into starting up a tankerman program. And I said, well, that's what I want to do. When I started off with this company, moving up on the boats was pretty rough. I mean, guys didn't leave. Once guys became lead man, they had to wait until they become a pilot or made apprentice and move up that way. And it was tough. The first couple of years I was here, there might have been 2 or 3 made apprentice positions that would open up, and you've got 50 applicants applying for it. And so I figured I'd go for that tankerman route once they offer that. I mean, that's a licensed position. That's really setting guaranteed work for me, and I've decided I'll go that route first. And then if I, can, I'll go, and try to get my mate apprentice at one time. And COVID definitely kind of threw a wrench in everybody's plans. I mean, no one company was, spared. And I remember the application came out and I want to say March of 2019, somewhere around there, and or 2018, I can't remember. And we I applied for it, interviewed around June of sometime, and December of 2020, I started going out onto the golf boats and started training as a tankerman. So
I'm not sure if it's different with Campbell than it is with Ingram or any other company that I've worked for, all shoreside. But how many levels, I suppose, are there? Green deckhand, all the way up, you said, to apprentice mate pilot, all that stuff. How many levels are there that you'll have to go through to get into a wheelhouse?
So when I first started, there wasn't many. It was green deckhand trainee, stern deckhand, lead deckhand, and then you could apply for your steersman. Um, and that was pretty much your opportunities on the boat side. We do have some boats that have engineers on it, but everybody knows what an engineered boat's like. I mean, once you get into that, you're you're golden. That's the golden ticket. Um, but since I've come shoreside, the opportunity for growth internally is was definitely it's a lot different than when I started with them. Now we have dedicated tankerman program, to advance deckhands into tankerman positions. We have a dedicated engineering program, which we try to open up every year. We have a dedicated steersman program, which opens up yearly. And then we also are constantly looking for qualified individuals off the vessels for shoreside positions that we think would be a good fit. So the room for advancement for the boat guys is a lot nicer than it was when I started, which is nice. It definitely gives a lot of the guys this hope, hey, I'm not going to be a deckhand forever. And I know some guys that they've been decking for 30 years and that's just what they love to do, and power to them. I mean, that's a true man right there.
Well, then how many levels from steersman all the way up to captain?
So the way we run it is we have the steersman. Once you finish all that up and you do your check rides and get everything back from the Coast Guard, and cut you loose as a pilot, and then from pilot to captain, depending on yourself and then the needs of the company or positions opening. Uh, we definitely like to hire, promote guys from within, from pilot to captain, instead of hiring from outside straight into that position.
Any interesting stories or experiences come to mind from your time out on boats?
Uh, I mean, I've definitely met some characters out here. I mean, people from all different walks of life. Some of the smartest guys I've met didn't even graduate high school, but they were just full of knowledge. They forgot more about this job than I could ever hope to learn. Some some weird characters too. Like I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But I've just met some really good people out here. I mean, these guys really do care about each other and they care about their crews. They care about you. And, I've gone through some hard stuff on the boats, and I've had, guys I was riding boats with, be there for me and help me through stuff. And I couldn't ask for a better place. So,
Anything specific you can share?
um, holidays for me were always rough, the way my career went, I was home for one Thanksgiving, basically. Even when I was day boating, we were pretty much working it. So it was always rough for me. And I got really fortunate with my last crew. We rode together for just over 2 years. And I mean, that was my family. Spending 9 months a year out of with them. I had the most, it was probably one of my best Christmases was being on a boat with them, or my best Thanksgiving being on the boat with them. They knew how to make it so you didn't miss home, which is definitely rough. It's a hard thing to separate, especially come the holiday seasons. To this day, I'm still close with that crew. I mean, that my old captain, Alvin, him and I will talk at least once or twice a month. And then the guy that trained me how to tank, that's my best friend. We actually went down to Alabama. He's a diehard Roll Tide fan. I'm a diehard Longhorns fan. So we were both off of work and went down to Alabama this year to watch the game. Luckily for me, I got to see my team win, but I call him or he calls me at least once or twice a week. I mean, that's definitely my best friend, and that crew is my family. So
Well, what were the best and worst things you can remember from your time out there on the water?
the best things was the views. I mean, you're not going to find a better office view, in my opinion, than waking up southbound, coming out of Baton Rouge with the sun, rising or sunsetting. Um, the pictures you get, I mean, there's nothing better. The worst thing, I would say for me, is the cold. I can't do the cold weather. It was real hard my last year on the boat. I was on the Illinois River all winter long, running from Hennepin to PBF, and it was rough up there. And as soon as we got clear, onto Baton Rouge down, it was 70 degrees. But up on the Illinois, it'd be a high of -8. And everybody's just like, yeah, this is normal. Like, no. But that was just personal, but definitely being away from home, that is tough. And that's a hard thing we're seeing now with this younger generation coming in. Nothing prepares you for it really. Um, but learning how to separate, my time on the boat from my time at home really helps. But you're still going to miss it. I don't care who you are, missing Christmas sucks. Uh, but yeah, I would say probably just dealing with the cold and being away. Those were the hardest things for me. But I mean, those views just that made me love the job. Waking up and seeing all this different parts.
What about the best and worst parts of being a tankerman?
Um, Worst parts for me. I mean, definitely summertime, just being stuck on that barge. Up here in the Pittsburgh area, it's not too bad in the summertime. We get a couple of hot days up here, but tanking down in Houston or New Orleans in August, it's definitely not fun sitting out there. So you get real crafty building your tents and stuff like that. You try to find yourself some shades. Um, Same concept in wintertime. I mean, you get the little isolation igloos, which help a good bit. But when you have to go out, it's rough. But I don't know. Tanking, like, I like it because a lot of guys think tanking might be easy, especially if they're not familiar with it. Oh, like all you do is just spin valves, right? And it's a joke I'll crack every once in a while, like, oh, good thing I just spin valves. But there's definitely pressure behind it because anything that happens, it's on me. So I do like that constant, hey, you got to be on your game at all times. You can't let it slack. That definitely helps me through a transfer, and I find the enjoyment of it being under that pressure.
Well, I know very little about it. What would it take for a tanker person to lose their license?
So I've been very fortunate. I've never had any incidences. Does it happen? We hear about it in the industry all the time. Uh, I wouldn't say I'm the most qualified individual to speak on that, but definitely, if you get found for being at fault for neglecting something, you're gonna not have a good time dealing with the Coast Guard. So it's important to go through like your pre-barge transfer inspections and stuff like that. You want to make sure your test dates are all good on your hoses and pipelines, your scubber plugs are in, your paperwork's good. Um, because anything that you kind of look over or skip could bite you in the butt, right? And to me, it's not worth it. So definitely very thorough, and I'll take my time getting my barge ready just to be on that safe side.
For sure, for sure. Tell me about your transition shoreside and how that maybe adjusted some other parts of your life.
Yeah, so I was actually still on the boats at the time. I was getting off somewhere down in the Houston area, and my dad actually, when he retired from the Coast Guard, hired into my current employer as well. And I had just moved up to Springtown, Texas, which is about 45 minutes north of Dallas, or west of Dallas. I'm sorry. And we had gotten some visitors on the boat, and one of the operations guys told me, oh, hey, you're going to see your dad while he's in town. I was like, oh, I give it a shot. I didn't know he's coming down. And so I swung by the office and, started chatting him up, seeing if he wanted to go grab dinner before I made the 4-hour drive home. And the vice president of the company happened to be there, came over and started talking to me. And I was fortunate enough to get invited to go to the rodeo with those guys. It was during March, Houston Rodeo was in town. And all these guys from Pittsburgh were down in the Texas area. You got to show them, what's fun. And so I got to hang around them and talk to them. And little did I know I was interviewing for this position without, even knowing it. Um, they kept asking me, what was my 5 year plan? And, I told them my 5 year plan is definitely to grow. I'd like to advance from tankerman to wheelhouse. I did mention that if a short side opportunity did come up, I wouldn't be opposed to going for it. And went home for my 10 days, came back to the boat probably 2 or 3 days later, and I get a call from HR that wakes me up on my off watch. And anybody in the industry, that's no fun, right? Getting a call from HR. And so I pick up, and our HR rep, says, "Oh, are you busy?" I said, I was sleeping, but, how can I help you? Like, is this a good call or a bad call, basically? And she goes, no, you're not in trouble. Everything's fine. There's a job opening up. Would you be interested in it? And I was like, well, what's the job? And she told me, we're looking for a training specialist, dedicated shoreside position. Is that something you'd be interested in doing? And when I was a deckhand, I'd always help out, when we did in-person training classes pre-COVID, on my weekends off and stuff like that. I would go up there and spend a couple days with the new hires. And then I was a trainer on the boats when I was in the dry cargo side. And I definitely loved it, passing down the knowledge from some greats that I've worked with, to the next generation coming up, just like they did for me. So I was definitely very interested in it. And I hadn't done a Microsoft PowerPoint since high school, and I had to get up and spend a couple hours trying to put a presentation together as part of my interview. And I made my whole boat crew, they were probably sick of me. I made them sit through this presentation probably 7 or 8 times, do like a little mock interview with them. And them guys were definitely not loving it, but it helped calm my nerves, And about a week after that, I flew off the boat, flew me back up to the Pittsburgh area and did the interview, and it went well.
And what have you been doing as a training specialist? Have you seen changes or improvements in training? I know it's company specific, so anything you can't share, I understand, but just a general idea.
Yeah, so pre me taking this position, we were still doing online onboarding. When COVID hit, we weren't bringing anybody in for in person. We were doing everything through Teams calls and all virtually. With the COVID restrictions lifting, they wanted to get back to doing it in person. And so when I started, I held the first class in about 2 years that they had in person. And one of the big things I changed was our CBT programs. I try to cut back as much as we possibly could. That still kept us compliant, kept us within regulations and stuff like that.
What is CBT?
Computer-based training.
Okay.
So some companies use like Moxie Media or Siemens Church Institute. It's just annual training that we'll do on the vessels. I even have a different matrix for my work email, cybersecurity. But so one of the things I had to do was go through the matrix from previous classes and try to basically build my own while staying within, all the CFR requirements. So I definitely relied a lot on the subject matter experts that are in my company. I was constantly bouncing things off guys, hey, does this meet the requirement? Does this do what we need it to do? Or am I going overboard with this? Can I cut back on this? And in May of 2021, we went hands-on, and or 2022, 21, and went hands-on with it. And at the time, we were running a 5-day class, Monday through Friday. Classroom side was 2 days, instructional learning, going over the CFRs, company policies, Artismus, things like that. And, doing their benefits, enrollments, and all that fun stuff. And then we would do 3 days of hands-on training before we would send them out to the boats to continue training. So one of the nice things my current employer does is they do the onboarding, hands-on training with me. And then we send them out as basically a third man to the boats. And because we know in 3 days you're not going to make a deckhand. In 20 days, chances are you're not going to make a deckhand. So we send him out as the third man, and basically we find that to be the safest way to get these guys, the most training, the most hands-on training we possibly can, in the safest environment for our job. And that runs anywhere from 20 to 30 days on average for most applicants, and eventually I get a cut loose stern deckhand, and then they're eligible to stand their own watch.
What sort of problems are you seeing in the younger generations of deckhands these days? Not necessarily, I mean, I don't.
So, I mean, talking from other people in the industry, I feel like we all face,
Okay.
basically the same
Yeah.
issue, right? Uh, Everybody's hurting for people, it's definitely been hard to, uh, a lot of companies, struggle with crewing boats and stuff like that, or, finding new guys that want to come do this job for what it is. Um, when I started, I was making just over $100 a day when I very first started on the river. Um, and some of the guys you've had on here previous started for a lot less. Nowadays, on average, most companies are starting out new guys around anywhere, around $200 or slightly over. So it's definitely changed in that aspect. The money's a lot nicer now, and it's still kind of hard, finding guys that want to put in that work, and I personally feel like one of the biggest issues we see is with the younger generation coming in, that new generation of mariners we're hoping for is they look very short term. You know, I feel like if you bring in a guy at 18 years old and a guy at 28 years old, they're going to have very different views on it, right? That 18-year-old kid tends to just look very short term, like, okay, I'm making X per hour with this company, but I can go to Bucky's, make 18 an hour starting out. And it seems fine and dandy. Like you would think, oh, it's more money, but you're not going to get the hours you get, on a towboat at a Bucky's. The room for advancement you're not going to get, so I try to really hone that in when I have my guys, my new hires. Don't look at this short term. You got to look at it long term. Where you have the guy that's 28, he comes in, he's looking at the benefits, the 401k, the life insurance, the health insurance, vision, dental, the advancement opportunities. So I definitely feel like that's the hardest gap, trying to uh, how to put that, trying to reach out to the younger guys coming in, and try to get them away from looking at this short term and look more long term, like, hey, this isn't a job, this is a career. you know I didn't ever plan this to be my career. Like I said, I had no idea what towboating was until I started, and I don't see myself doing anything else. I'll always stay within this industry. I've been very fortunate, and it's blessed me a lot. So, and I try to tell these guys my personal stories, to show them, hey, there's room to advance, and it doesn't have to take you forever. You can do it very short term. So,
Well, switching gears a little bit, what did your father do in the Coast Guard?
so he was a marine safety inspector for the Coast Guard. So pre sub M, about the only thing he would necessarily do with towboats was investigate accidents and stuff like that. Because prior to the sub M CFRs, we were uninspected towing vessels. But he did a lot of inspections on seagoing units and stuff like that. Um, but when he first started out, he rode patrol boats, patrolling the Pacific coast. I was actually born in Astoria, Oregon, where the Goonies was filmed. We lived there for about 6 months, and then he got transferred to Norfolk, and we were stationed out there for a while, and kind of been all over this country with it. So uh, he made warrant officer in 2005 or six, somewhere around there, I believe. And that's when he went into marine safety and started doing inspections and all that fun stuff. And then when sub M came into effect, now is definitely more focused on the inland side. He was stationed out to the Pittsburgh duty station going into my senior year of high school. And when I finished up my senior year of high school, I came out here to live with him, and try to find something for myself, figure out what I wanted to do with life, and I found it.
Where did you spend most of your time growing up?
So in between New York and Pittsburgh, pretty much, were the longest areas I've lived in. I've lived in um, Oregon for 6 months. We were in the state of Virginia for about 4 or 5 years. Um, 8 years in New York, 4 years in League City, Texas, and then I've been out in Pittsburgh since 2016, on and off. So,
How different is life between Pittsburgh and Texas?
oh, it's definitely very different. My guys up here definitely, 80-degree days. They're saying it's hot, and I'm still in a hoodie. I definitely handle the heat a lot more than I handle the cold. And then those same guys, when it's cold out there, out in t-shirts, and I'm in my parka. So, it's definitely different. I'll tell you what though, Pittsburgh's actually it's a phenomenal city. I love it. Besides the winters, I could do without them. But fall, spring, summer, it's not too bad. We don't get those 115-degree days like Houston does or New Orleans with that 100% humidity. You know, um, and it's just beautiful area. I mean, I live right outside of the city, so I'm close enough where it's convenient for me to go do things, but not close enough where I listen to traffic all the time and have to deal with all that. But definitely got love for both places.
Well, what does the future look like for you? Where do you go from here?
So that's honestly a good question. I'd be lying if I said I had a clear cut plan just quite yet. I do love what I do. I love dealing with the training and stuff like that. So staying within employee development, definitely within the ballpark. We've made a lot of changes in the last 2 years to training. Like I said, we used to run 5-day classes, and a lot of the feedback we got from our boat guys was, hey, after 3 days of hands on, they still don't really know anything. So we turned from 3 days hands on to it's a 10-day class with still about 2.5 days of classroom training, and then 7 to almost 8 days of hands on training before they even go out to the fleet boats to be that third man. So we're constantly striving for, find better ways to train. Um, how I said when I started, there wasn't too much growth opportunity necessarily. If you're on the boats, steersman was about your best bet, and you'd have 3 spots maybe open up with 50 guys applying. Now we've implemented all of these different programs, the tankerman program. We just started having mates on our boats up here in the Ohio River. So another opportunity for guys to advance on the deck and grow into leadership spots, engineering program, and then our steersman program. So it's definitely nice, helping those guys out because I mean they're the backbone of us, right? Without them, I don't have a job. So I do everything I can to try to help them and make their lives a little bit easier, help them grow in the industry. So, uh, but operations too, like I definitely wouldn't mind, maybe down the road at some point dabbling into that. But I'm really happy where I'm at. I love what I do. I wake up and I don't have that dread, like how I did selling cars. It was miserable to me. With this, it's challenging and it's constantly engaging. Things are constantly moving, changing. How can we make this better? How can we tweak this, or how can we implement this in to help these guys out? So I definitely love that constant challenge.
Well, this is kind of a broad question, and of course, everybody's different. But what sort of characteristics should individuals have? What characteristics make the best deckhands that you've seen so far?
You're not wrong. That's definitely a broad question, but um, I would say the ones I see are the ones that have that drive, that drive to succeed, that drive to provide, it could be from anything just to succeed or to provide for their families. This is definitely a job that you can do that for, with little to no education. Um, you're not going to find jobs that you can make the money we make out here without, and as reliable as we can without, some form of education for the most part. Um, a lot of the issues I see is guys, they have a hard time being away from home. Like there's nothing that prepares you for being gone for 20 days at a time. So that's definitely a hump. And uh, trying to figure out the answer, how can we, help get these guys toes wet with that, it's definitely been a struggle. But it, I've seen people from all walks of life, and they're all different. Everybody's different, but you got to just have that drive to succeed and that want, you know. To me, that makes a good deckhand as long as you're willing to learn. Uh, I've never met anybody out here that says they know it all, I've worked with guys that have been out here 40, 50 years, and they'll still tell you to this day they learn something new every day, you know. I'm a big believer in that. My dad always told me growing up, the second you think you know it all, you're done. You might as well give up. Once you close your mind to that, you should always be striving to learn. So I try to keep that, and I try to, talk to my guys about that all the time. Be willing to learn constantly, keep your ears open. Learn from everybody you work with.
Well, you mentioned that that Campbell's pretty good with retention, that people don't leave. Um, I'm sure over the years you've heard different things from different folks and different companies, but how best do you think the industry can improve recruitment and retention for deckhands?
So that's definitely I mean, even Campbell, right, or my current employer, we're looking at, how can we make our numbers better? I think every company is striving for that. COVID has kind of hurt that big time. It's already a little bit hard pre-COVID, and then COVID kind of came around, and retention definitely industry wide got worse. Um, One of the nice things about my current employer that I think plays a big factor into it is the mentality my current employer provides its guys. We're not some huge company, right? You know, um, but we're not no small mom and pop, but we give you that small mom and pop feeling. Everybody, you're not a number. Um, Everybody matters and all that. And I think that played, at least personally for me, that played a big factor into it. Um, but how can bigger companies incorporate that? And I couldn't tell you, but little things like that definitely go a long way. Just showing your guys you appreciate them. My work phone never stops. I have guys call me just to vent, and I'll sit there on the phone for 2 hours, and just because they need that vent, get it off their chest and feel better. They know it's whatever they say stays between me and them. And I think I'd like to think that maybe helps, get guys from doing something silly like leaving and going, something else, or saying something silly. So um, just being there and supporting everybody, I think definitely goes a long way. Uh, but it's one of those things. There's not just one solid answer that fits. So you got to get creative and try to find out different ways.
And finally, man, what has this, I mean, aside from what you've already stated, what has this industry meant to you and your future now? And where do you see the industry going?
So what the industry means to me, I'll be honest, I had no clue what I was going to do after high school. Uh, I didn't apply myself by any means. And now looking hindsight, back, I wish I had known about this industry while I was in school. I would have definitely applied myself a little bit more, and, try to go on to a maritime college like A&M or SUNY or, uh, Kings Point. And, but, you live and you learn. But, I graduated kind of low in my class, again, because I just didn't apply myself. And I regret that every day. But this industry's been very fortunate to me. I mean, it's given me not a job, a career, something I can do for the rest of my life, whether it's in the shore side aspect in the office or just as a tankerman on the boat side. I'll never have to go without work, which to me is very fortunate. During COVID, seeing everybody getting laid off, from all types of jobs, where um, my current employer, we didn't lay off anybody. Nobody got affected in that aspect. So it was very fortunate, in my opinion. And you're not going to find that really elsewhere. As far as where the industry goes, I think definitely just in the short time I've been in it, I've seen safety continuously grow, and become such a huge thing in every company's philosophy. And definitely talking to some guys that started well before me, safety's changed a lot in the last 10, 20, 30 years. And I think, we're still going that route. And that's the best way to go about it. The way I look at it, our number one priority is our guys, making sure they go home the same way they come to the boats. And I think, you see that from all companies.
Are there any stories you can share? No names, no companies or anything, but interesting things you've heard about maybe safety 30 years ago?
You definitely I've heard some cowboy stories about, how towboating used to be. Um, working with some old timers that they tell you that how decking was back then. And it's like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine that. You know,
Like what?
you used to definitely hear about the partying. That was a huge thing back in the day. And I couldn't imagine. I personally couldn't imagine trying to do the job now and doing that. Companies didn't orientate guys at all. They would just, hey, you want a job? Here you go. Slap you on a boat, and you just kind of had to figure it out as you went. That's wild to me, especially now. I couldn't imagine a company trying to do that today. They wouldn't have anybody. Nobody would work for them. So, I mean, it's definitely changed a lot. And like a lot of the rules and regulations we have are because of how things used to be back in the day. And in all honesty, they're to help us and keep us safer and make things better for us. So it gets annoying sometimes, but there's a rhyme and reason to it. And I think we're going in a good step as an industry. So
Well, Jonathan, I think that'll do it, man. I appreciate your time this evening.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Absolutely, but I hope you keep enjoying the show and you find some time to listen to a few more.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely, sir.
Thanks again, man.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Talk to you soon. This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.